We ain't microdosing on the weather. Now, what was it, last week? It's been so long. The time moves so quickly now with all these breaking events and things we got going on. But last week, they told you were going to get 12 to 14 inches of snow and you got 3 feet.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Well, now, earlier this week here in the greater metropolitan Louisville, Kentucky area, we had an ice storm. And everything has been frozen since then because it hadn't been above freezing in a week now. And it's just changed shape over the time. Some of it's off of the trees. Some of them are still bent over. But my driveway, actually part of the downhill part, and it's exposed to what sun there was. And it managed, with the wind and everything, managed to dry off. But the top of it, the flat part, thankfully, melted and refroze, and it looks like a skating rink. And poor Harley, we mentioned, we opened up the experience this past week talking about the various shit habits that our dogs have. Little Swami up there and my little Harley Quinn. And we figured, why not, since dog shitting habits are more entertaining than most current wrestling, so we'll follow up on that. Harley it's been a source of consternation to the poor thing. She likes to shit outside, as dogs do, right? But she can't walk on the grass where she usually sits and shits, actually. She sits and shits in the grass. Not in the same place, obviously. But it's like little needles because it's all frozen stiff. And it was so hard yesterday when I was walking on it, I couldn't even break them. And she likes to shit in the grass. She doesn't like to shit on the pavement because, after all, we can't live like savages. But now that's frozen completely over, and she couldn't keep her footing. So we've had to use the inside indoor auxiliary puppy pad location for this bad weather. But overnight, last night, we got the harbinger of things to come. We got like an inch of snow, which covered the glaze over the driveway. And she insists on going outside. Every day she can't realize it looks the same out the window. Why doesn't she realize it's the same? So today, she's all says she wants to go outside. I said, all right, you're going to see. When I lift the garage door, she sees that big expanse of white driveway, not the ice that she had seen before, but this beautiful snow. And she loves to run and romp in the snow and dig her nose in the snow, and she looks like Pacino and Scarface coming out of the fucking deal. And so she immediately runs out, and right in the driveway, she pees because she's got to pee. And as soon as she takes one step to kick a foot back, like, when they start to kick to cover it up, right? She kicks the 1 foot back and all of her feet fly out from under her, and she belly flops in the snow because the ice is still under there and she didn't know it. And then she can't get on the grass. She has to stay on the walk in the driveway, but it's slick there, and she came back in the house. But that's the poop slip, or the pee slip, was the funniest thing that I've seen. But this brings to mind, we're about to get, according to what they say here, anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of snow. If they told you 12 to 14 and you got 3 feet, does that mean that we're about to get 2.5 feet of snow? I'm worried about this.
Probably not, because you're in Louisville, Kentucky, not the Northeast.
It snowed at the Alamo. It snowed in San Antonio, Texas. Dallas is going to get 6 inches of snow. So we've completely fucked up the environment, but all these things, who knows what's going to happen? I was in Dallas, Texas one time when they had 6 inches of snow, and it is not a normal thing that happens. This was 36 years ago, and they freaked the fuck out. Not only did, but nobody's going to drive anywhere. Nobody is going to be. It's Armageddon. It's the end of the world. 6 inches of snow in Dallas is the same thing as fucking forest fires at the Antarctic. It does not compute with those people. I predict trouble. Did we ever do a deep dive on when we transitioned, me and the Midnight Express, from Mid-South Wrestling to Dallas. I can't remember whether that specific December, January, after we finished the in-between part.
We may have. I'm not certain. I could check right now, but I think we may have.
The point, it was a fucking rib on me because it was like that Christmas of 1984 was one of the 2 most miserable weeks of my life, all in all. Because we were moving from Mid-South and from Alexandria, Louisiana, and moving to Dallas because we were going to World Class. And we've told the story before. Originally, we were going to go to work for Crockett then, and had already planned to move to Charlotte. And Watts intervened and twisted our arm to go to Texas and blah, blah, blah. But I looked up the schedule for when the last time I was in Dallas, Texas in a snowstorm and what had happened right before it. We actually had a few days off in Mid-South, which was unusual. We were packing all our shit up. And then we've got to finish Mid-South and start Dallas in the same weekend. And then we get a Christmas break, and then we're starting full time. So on December the 14th, 1984, I'll make this quick and get to the point. We do the scaffold match with the Rock and Roll Express in Greenville, Mississippi. These were the last few Mid-South towns. And then Little Rock, Arkansas, scaffold match the next day. So we did a 500-mile round trip on Friday in the scaffold match. And then Saturday, we go to Little Rock, which was a 5-6 hour drive, and I leave my car at the airport. We do the scaffold match that night, and I fly because Louisville is closest to Little Rock, and that's where I'm going eventually. I have to fly the next day on Sunday the 16th all the way to Lafayette, Louisiana, as far south as you can go. We do another scaffold match. And then, I flew to Baton Rouge and drove to Lafayette. You can't actually fly to Lafayette. So I flew from Little Rock to Baton Rouge, drove to Lafayette, did the match, went back to Baton Rouge. The next day, flew to Dallas because we had to do the Fort Worth TV for World Class. Did that TV that night. The next day, flew back to Little Rock, picked up my car at the parking lot, drove to Nashville, stayed over that night, and all the way back to Louisville the next day. So I got home on December 19th about noon. And I'm thinking, the first time I've got 11 days off in over a year, 2 years at least, in a row. And I'm home for Christmas, right? All I've got to do is make Reunion Arena Christmas night in Dallas, and I'm off until I leave for Texas on the 30th of December. Because of that schedule I just told you, I'm worn out, run down. I get a cold 2 days later, and I spend 3 days at home sick in bed before Christmas. Christmas Day, I've got a fever of 102. I don't know how much disease I spread, by the way, on my way to Dallas, because I had to fly to Dallas and do the show at Reunion Arena. It's Christmas night against the Fantastics, midnight, American Tag Team title match. Reunion Arena sold out, right? So I fly from Louisville to Dallas with 102-degree fever and who knows what the fuck I was sick with. Do the show that night. That's the one, Brian, you've seen that match. It was on World Class TV. And it's the one where we've just got there. I throw the temper tantrum after the Fantastics get a quick pin, boom, and slide out. And I throw a temper tantrum in the middle of the ring. And it's been out there. It's I assume on the network, but it's been out there on YouTube. I've seen it over the ensuing years. I'm ready to have a brain aneurysm. I'm throwing that goddamn tantrum with 102-degree fever. I'm about to pass out anyway. I'm sweating like a whore in church. I'm fucking sick. And then the next day I fly back home and I spend 2 more days in bed and end up driving back to Dallas leaving on the 30th, getting there on the 31st because we're in Fort Worth for the Monday night TV taping at the Will Rogers Coliseum on New Year's Eve. And I'm just starting to feel better. I did have to stop once on the way down there right in Texarkana and throw up on the side of the road. I'm not sure whether Texarkana had anything to do with it or not. But I figure, fuck it. We're off New Year's Day. Me and Bobby and Dennis all have got rooms at a La Quinta right off the interstate in Irving, Texas, with a Denny's in the parking lot. That's where we're going to live while we're apartment hunting. So I'm just going to go to bed and sleep until I wake up. And then go to Denny's and get something to fucking eat. And we have a couple of days off, and then we start full time. I'll feel better. I wake up about 1 o'clock the next fucking day, right? And my drapes are all closed and I'm in the backside of the La Quinta, but I thought, boy, that sun's awful bright. It's shining through the curtains. I opened my fucking door and there was 6 inches of snow in the parking lot. It was suddenly like 30 fucking degrees. From the time that I had got back from the Coliseum show at 11 o'clock the previous night until 1 o'clock that afternoon, it had snowed 6 inches in Dallas, Texas. And the whole city had shut down. Thankfully, not Denny's. But I was watching the news and it didn't register at the time how unheard of that was, because from Louisville, I'm used to, okay, 6 inches of snow. That happens. Those people weren't prepared. They were just trying to go across the interstate to the fucking 7-Eleven to get drinks. I'm seeing people off the side of the fucking ramp, off the side of the road, off in the parking lot. They can't get out. They have no idea how. They just floor it and hope for the best. So
when Dennis did the first Eddie Gilbert Memorial Brawl, we ended up having a good time.
Dennis Coralluzzo,
Dennis Coralluzzo,
not Condry, who I just referred to.
That's right, Dennis
multiple
Coralluzzo.
Dennises for those of you trying to keep track.
In 1996, but there was a snowstorm the night before, and everyone that was in the hotel, we were stuck. I mean, it was so much snow. We didn't know how they were going to do the brunch the next day at the racetrack, let alone the show. But everything ended up working out. But it makes me wonder, between this story and the Dallas story, although that's only snow in Dallas, it's not real snow. What is the most amount of snow you've seen on the road where it messed things up and you were caught in the middle of it? What's the biggest snowstorm you've experienced?
Okay, well, a couple of answers to that question. The most snow I've ever seen in one place has to be in 1996. I'm sorry, let me change that year. 1999 is when it was. There was a Monday Night Raw taping in Seattle, and then also in, oh my God, what is one of the only other cities in Washington that is due east of Seattle? Could it be Tacoma? Not Tacoma, that's together. Is it, oh God damn it. Bail me out, great geography Brian Last. Give me any other city in Washington State.
Bellingham.
Oh, fuck. There is a city, which I'm sure you can find if you'd apply yourself, that's directly east of Seattle in Washington State. And that's where the taping was the following day. And besides the fact that I had already made plans to go after the Raw taping, since we were on West Coast time, we were done at like fucking 7 o'clock or whatever it was. I was going to go to the next town, but also I heard there was a big snowstorm going to come through again. It had already snowed out in that direction. And so driving from Seattle to this other town, there were like 7-8 feet of snow on the sides of the interstate piled up. And when you would get off at exits, I mean, they know how to do it there because they get all that snow, but there was literally like in untreated areas, 7 or 8 feet of snow on the ground on this drive that I made. It was insane. Did you find that town by now?
Spokane.
There you go. That was a lot of snow, but as far as actively coming down and fucking up shows, we in Smoky Mountain one year, I think it was either early 93 or early 94. No, early 94 may have been ice. Early 93. Point is, East Tennessee got like 2.5 feet of snow, and up in around Beckley, West Virginia, they got 36 inches. And that's very uncommon, all in those places. And we had to cancel Beckley. But I'd actually been in Morristown, where I lived the night before at a show, and they were calling for bad weather. We were just finished with the show. And I'm thinking, okay, I've only got, I think I lived 7-8 miles, I guess it was, from the high school where we ran. But geez, the ice and the sleet and the snow was starting to come down, and it took me a while to get home. And then I realized, oh shit, I haven't planned ahead. I've got shit in the garage. I can't get the car in. Fuck it, this shit's coming down, and that's the sleet pellets and everything. I got to carry some more shit, so I'm rushing back and forth. I make a couple of trips, leave the car door open accidentally. When I go in last time, the door's still, you've done that before, right? Though the door's still standing open and you forgot.
Never have.
You've never done that? Well, fuck you then. Because the next morning I get up late again, and I'm going to call Sandy Scott because I figure we're going to have to cancel Beckley. It's up in the mountains. They're having the bad weather. I look out the window and it looks like somebody has come and built a snowman next to my car. And I'm like, what the fuck? As I go out, I look, we got 2 feet of snow on top of the open door. There was 1.5 feet of snow in the car seat. The snowman was my open door next to the car. And me and Hildebrand, Mark Curtis, Brian Hildebrand, got stuck in a storm coming back from Beckley. On another occasion, he was riding with me, and we had to get off the interstate because the interstate was so treacherous with the ice and the snow and people spinning out that we actually took the back roads, because on the back roads, it's acknowledged that everybody was going to be going 15 miles an hour tops. And it was almost safer till we could get to an area that had been cleared up a little better. It took us like 8 hours to do a 3 or 4 hour drive. Fucked up another time in Ring of Honor. I was supposed to be up there for which I did make the show, but Stace and I were going a couple of days early to spend, a little time, because for whatever reason, she enjoys New York City. But we were going to leave on let's say a Thursday. Well, bad weather was called for. We said, shit, we're going to fucking leave Wednesday night and get ahead of it. But by the time that we could get our shit together and start leaving, it'd start coming. So we actually started driving on a Wednesday night from Louisville to New York City and actually got there on a Friday evening. Because we had to stop in Lexington, Kentucky. We only got 60 miles. Then it was all we could do one day to do another 300 miles. And it's all interstate. And finally got there 2 days later. And there was another time in Ring of Honor, now that I think about it. The show was actually, one of the 2 shows in Philly was snowed out. They were still doing the HDNet TV tapings. And the plan was to do 2 days of taping on one weekend, and then the following weekend was a big internet pay-per-view in New York. So in the middle of that, Stace and I were going to spend because it was Valentine's, right? It was actually probably 10 years ago this month, as a matter of fact. It was Valentine's, so Stace and I were going to do the TV tapings in Philadelphia, go down and spend several days in Baltimore at the Inner Harbor, going to Little Italy, and then come back up for the New York Ring of Honor pay-per-view. This is before we were parents and had responsibilities at home. And I looked up, and the average temperature in Baltimore on Valentine's Day was supposed to be like 42 degrees. It didn't fucking make it. We did one night of TV in Philadelphia, and it started snowing that afternoon. And by the time we got out of there, we could barely get back to the fucking airport, and canceled the next day. And they got 18 to 20 inches of snow. I'm as a matter of fact, I'm underestimating. It was in the low 20 inches of snow. And we sat there for 2 days until the roads were clear enough that we had reservations at the Inner Harbor at the goddamn Embassy Suites, or which I can't remember where we were staying, at the Inner Harbor. And so I said, well, fuck it. We can sit there as well as we can sit here. So we got in Black Beauty and drove to Baltimore. They got 34 inches of snow. The snow drifts were as high as your head, and the fucking where they'd plowed some streets, and the whole town except Little Italy was shut down. So we stayed there for 4 days and looked out the window at shit. And then we drove up to New York, which was shitty and sloshy and muck covered by that point, and did that Ring of Honor show. That was a real pain in the weather ass.
Hey, I was thinking, when you said Mid-South before, did you experience any tornadoes when you were there?
No, thank goodness. We had a lot of thunderstorms and, shit like that, but I recall more tornado warnings happening on a regular basis here in Kentucky than I do down in Louisiana.
I was thinking about Oklahoma specifically, but yeah.
Well, we only had to pop in and out of there once or twice a month. I don't think I was in the state of Oklahoma ever more than 24 hours straight, because it was at the far end of the territory. We were in and out of there, especially when both shows were on the same day. And we were driving from somewhere the night before and then going back home afterwards. We would literally, on those days, we would be in the Oklahoma state limits to do 2 shows, one in Oklahoma City and one in Tulsa, and not be in the state for fucking more than 12 hours. So, meh.
All right.
Anyway, but I dare you, I double dog. As a matter of fact, I wish Manscaped was a sponsor this week, because you don't have any hair on your fucking balls if you don't put that story I just told about the snowstorm in Dallas up on YouTube under the title Jim Cornette on getting 6 inches in Dallas.
I was going to put Jim Cornette gets a snow job, but that works better.
Hey! We've all gotten a snow job in our lives at times. Speaking of a snow job,